about retrograde planet on Jupiter. So what happens if Jupiter is retrograde in your natal chart? What could be the effects that you can experience vis-a-vis all the 12 houses? I normally try to connect it with houses, because without houses or without bhavas, you rarely get the effect. So, let's see what Jupiter as a planet signify and what happens when it is retrograde and getting connected to the 12 bhavas, each of these 12 bhavas. Okay, so as we all know, Jupiter is a planet for expansion, right? It is a planet for augmenting the benefits, or multiplying the benefit. I won't say multiplying, but giving you big effects, big results, or big positive results, or big positive, or in extreme cases even negative results. So Jupiter is a very important planet because it expands. Now, a retrograde Jupiter in your natal chart can turn out to be detrimental. A lot of people say, oh, Jupiter is exalted and debilitation. Please understand, in my school of thought, especially students who have learned astrology under me, they would know that mere exaltation or debilitation is not going to give you the desired results. Okay, you have to understand the entire planet in toto, of which direct motion and retrograde motion is also one condition. Okay, so coming back to the point, if Jupiter is retrograde, or let us first understand what does Jupiter stands for, and then we can talk about the retrograde effects. So as I said, Jupiter is a karaka for expansion. It is also the dhana karaka, it is also the karaka for money. Okay, it also symbolizes guru, teacher, mentor. It also signifies liver in your medical astrology. It also signifies brain. So it's a very important planet in any natal chart because of several factors, and some of the factors that I've mentioned out here is this. Okay, it also signifies fatherly figure. So Jupiter has got a lot of roles to play. Okay, so unfortunately, if Jupiter is retrograde in your natal chart, it can have effects. Okay, so let us understand what happens if Jupiter is retrograde in your natal chart and getting connected with the 12 bhavas. So let's go one by one with that. Now let's see what happens if Jupiter gets retrograde Jupiter in your natal chart gets connected with your first house. Okay, now these are some of the examples that I'm quoting. It doesn't mean that it happens exactly the same. Okay, but yes, general observation. Of course, you have to see the entire natal chart in toto, which I normally do. But those who have learned astrology under me, again, they would know. When a planet turns retrograde, what could be the effect? More so when it comes to like planets like Jupiter or any of these sensitive planets, which has got multiple roles to play. Okay. Now let's see if Jupiter gets connected. Retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the ascendant. And what does the effects can be, So as I said, Jupiter stands for brain, and the first house or the first bhava is also called as the Tanu bhava, which is yourself, right? So when you look at the Tanu bhava, okay, or when Jupiter gets retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the first house, normal observation is that people tend to be too expressive when it comes to their emotion. Okay. In extreme cases, they may also have mental disorders. Cases of autism. I teach medical astrology, where those who have learned astrology under me, one of the preconditions for an autism case is that Jupiter should get connected with the first house, and invariably, if it is a retrograde Jupiter, most cases we have seen that the person suffers from autism as one of the example. Now that doesn't mean it is applicable to every other natal chart. These are exceptions. These are certain conditions that can lead to mental disorder. Okay. Also, the person is too much with ideas, because the first house is the house, it's a Tanu bhava, it is about yourself, and since it also signifies brain, you will have too many ideas, but you will always have problem in channelizing those ideas or implementing those ideas, right? So this is one common problem when retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the first house. Again, being a masculine planet, you will have that masculine energy in you, okay, but again the fizz would just leak out from time to time, largely because a retrograde Jupiter will not give you the desired results. That's the logic behind it. You will have a lot of unconventional thinking also, so that is also one experience what people will have if Jupiter is retrograde in their natal chart. Now let's see what happens when Jupiter is retrograde and getting connected with the second house. See, second house stands for your facial expression. It stands for money. It stands for your family. It stands for your personal possession. Now, by default, if a planet is retrograde, these areas will get affected in one way or the other. So your expression could be like sometimes too silly. People do not know how to express. I've seen cases there they may express something, but they may have an intent which could be easily retrieved from their face. So these are some of the hints that you can make out of the planet Jupiter is retrograde in your natal chart. Okay, again, being in the second house and being a Dhanakaraka, the flow of money will definitely be high, but it will also lead to wasteful expenditure, or a very casual expenditure. Sometimes people they may lose money. Somebody might rob you. I won't say rob you, but somebody would con you and take you away the money, and you'll be careless. I said, "ठीक है, I'll get more money, if this money goes, I'll get more money." That could be a casual attitude can develop. Similarly, casual attitude can develop it with your family members. So these are some of the common problems that I've seen with people who have got a retrograde Jupiter in the second house or getting connected with the second house. There are also problems with regard to ENT, particularly throat. In certain cases, it's also eyes and ears, but throat is one common problem that I've seen. They have this problem of infection. So that is something which they need to be very careful with. So in case if you have a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the second house, these are some of the common issues that you can come across. Now let's see what happens if Jupiter is getting connected with the third house. See, third house is also a very important house. It is the house for inclination. It is the house for courage. It is the house for younger siblings. It is the house for your neighbors, right? It is the house for short travel. It is the house for correspondence or communication. Your second house is for oral communication. Third house is for written communication. It also signifies your hands. Your third house also signifies hands. So when a retrograde Jupiter gets connected with these houses, there would be some issues with these areas that I've recently mentioned, particularly with regard to your courage, inclination, communication. These are common because these are soft traits, soft skills that comes into picture. You will always find a person who has got a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the third house. These will be the problem areas for him. Either the person will be too communicative, too expressive, open. That's like a perfect book. They'll just open up everything and say, fine, you can read me the way you want. Okay, or they may have a communication issue, poor articulation. See, Jupiter also signifies depth in a foreign language. So if you're very good in any of these foreign languages, including English, what we communicate, right, it is largely signified by Jupiter. So in case of Jupiter is retrograde, right, so you will have issues with foreign language. Probably you may not be as expressive as you could be in your local language or in your mother tongue, vis-a-vis any of these foreign languages. So Jupiter is also the Karaka for foreign language, and these are the areas where you will always find problems. Okay, there is always an issue when you travel if retrograde Jupiter gets connected with third house. So all the short distance travel will always have obstacles. You will feel it's a long way to go. Okay, but it will not be a long way to go. It will be too many obstacles. You may come across too many signals that will put a impediment to reach your destination. These are some of the common problems that you have when retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the third house. Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the fourth house. So fourth house is also the moksha sthan. It is the matru sthan. It is also the house of property, vehicle. Okay, it is also the area of thinking faculty. A lot of people believe the first house alone is the thinking area. No, the fourth house is the actual place where your thinking thought process begins. So your thinking faculty is also connected with fourth house. So normally when you have a Jupiter getting connected with retrograde Jupiter getting connected with fourth house, you will find problems in these areas. Okay, your relation with your mother will be sweet, but at the same time will be troublesome. Probably you will not be able to explain points to her, or probably she will not be able to communicate to you appropriately and understand each other. if you're living in a house, it will be a large house, and a fourth house and plus Jupiter means it's a huge house, but there will be some Vastu dosh because of a retrograde planet, particularly in the northeast direction, right? Because Jupiter signifies northeast direction. So this is one area where fourth house and Jupiter, retrograde Jupiter, gets connected and leads to the problem. Okay, you will also be a bit emotional at times, because fourth house also signifies thinking faculty. So sometimes you will feel, what am I doing, or what sort of a life am I leading to? You will have issues with your education, Though Jupiter is a Karaka for expansion and higher studies, and fourth house is actually the house for learning. A lot of people believe the fifth house. Fifth house is actually for creativity. It's always the fourth house and the ninth house, which is for education. So fourth house and Jupiter getting connected, you'll be on and off with your education. At some point in time, you'll show so much of depth in learning. The other point in time, you'll say, oh, I'm too fed up with learning. Let me take a break and move out. This is one problem that I've seen. Again, if you buy a large vehicle, because fourth house also signifies vehicle, and you have a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the fourth house, there will always be a problem with that vehicle. Either you'll meet with some silly accident, or there will be some damage work that you need to do. Your maintenance cost can increase sometimes. So all these things can be an irritating point. It's not very severe, but yeah, these are all irritating points that bother you on and off. Okay, so this is the effect of retrograde Jupiter connecting with the fourth house. Now let's see what happens when retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the fifth house. See, Jupiter itself signifies Putra Karaka, right? And your fifth house is a Dharmastan. Also, it is the house of creativity and for childbirth. It is post-childbirth, it is not pre-childbirth, right? You have to always analyze childbirth, which is post-childbirth and pre-childbirth. I'll explain that a little later, but let's touch upon the fifth house. So, if you have a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the fifth house, and if you have a son, through your marital relationship, then you will have issues with that son, or the son will have issues with the father. Okay, because Jupiter signifies a male child, so I have normally seen a retrograde planet getting connected with fifth house. The father-son relationship will always be some issues between them, which will not, or rather which will keep them apart on and off. It doesn't break the relationship, but yeah, it leads to a lot of thorns, and it's like a rose, which is very beautiful, but it does with a lot of thorns in between. So that problem is commonly seen. Again, fifth house is house for creative thinking. So you'll be either too creative, or sometimes you'll be too dull. Again, because of this retrograde energy. Sometimes you'll be too good, sometimes you'll be too bad. All right. Fifth house is also for enjoyment. So I have seen a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with fifth house. The person will show only interest in enjoyment and no actual activity or no practical work. Because they always want to be in a state of ecstasy. Right, fun, just be in that high, I'm not saying they're drug addict or any kind of an intoxication, but yeah, they are in their own dream world, and then that would keep them engaged. So fifth house connecting with a retrograde Jupiter will make the person more lazy. It has got some good thing, but yes, it can also see the negative side. So this is the general effect of Jupiter getting connected with the fifth house. Now, let's see what happens when Jupiter gets connected with the sixth house. See, sixth house, in astrology, sixth house, eighth house and tenth house is the 12th house. The 6th, 8th and 12th house is the most detrimental house. Any planet getting connected to these three houses, it is really in a bad state. Because sixth house stands for Rogue Sthan, It is also the Artha Sthan, So if you are looking out for a job, routine work, you need sixth house. But it is also the house for Rogue Sthan. When I say Rogue Sthan, it is a house for ailments and disease. I have seen innumerable of cases where retrograde Jupiter getting connected with sixth house, either they will have some brain issues or they would have issues with their liver. So this is a very common problem that I've come across. Okay, so sixth house and retrograde Jupiter connection is always problematic. So be careful whenever these planets get connected with sixth house. Yes, there are remedies for it. So please consult an astrologer. You can also come to me for any kind of a remedy. But it is very important that you take cognizance of this rather than just concluding that, I'm into a Jupiter Dasha, everything is good, everything is hunky-dory, everything is fine. No, it doesn't work like that. right? Retrograde Jupiter can lead to problem, more so if it is getting connected with the sixth house. Also remember, sixth house is for debt, rin house, reen stan, what we say in Hindi, so your debt problem can be beyond your manageable state, right? Also sixth house stands for subordinates and pets, like breeding a cat, dog, what normally have. You will have issues with all these areas in your life in case if you have a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the sixth house. So this is something that you need to be very careful with, right? Now let's see what happens when Jupiter gets connected with the seventh house. As we all know, seventh house is the house of partner, it is your spouse, your gender, anybody, even you for me, even the audience for me. A retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the seventh house will always be problematic when it comes to the opponent person. Either the opponent person will not understand you or you will not understand the opposite person. It is usually we who do not understand the opposite person, right? There is trouble in marital relationship. I am not saying it will lead to a divorce. In extreme cases, it can. Okay, but in general, I have seen that people are not comfortable in their marital relationship, right? They also have a problem with their gurus, because the seventh house is the opposite house and guru sitting in the other house. They usually have a problem with their gurus. There is always a disconnect between the guru and the shishya, the student, right? Seventh house is also the house for kama, desires. So desires will also be misplaced sometimes. You will have too much of desire of certain things. You may have less desire of other things. So your desires can also be misplaced in most of the situations. So this is the general effect of Jupiter, retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the seventh house. Now let's see what happens when retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the eighth house. Okay. Normally in astrology, we believe that eighth house is very troublesome house. Just now when I spoke, I said eighth house is also considered to be not a great house for a planet position. But there are certain good things that you also have in the eighth house. For example, the sudden development in your life happens because of eighth house. Your ancestral property should have a connection with the eighth house. Uterus of a female is always in the eighth house. So if you have a retrograde Jupiter, I've seen cases where there is some problem with their childbirth. Either there can be a premature birth, okay, or there could be some hassle, when it comes to childbirth. But there is always some issue when it comes to female. Your blood disorder, such as diabetes or blood pressure or any other kind of a blood disorder, okay, usually will have the eighth house connection, because eighth house is anything which is inside your body, right? So blood is also inside your body, and Jupiter is the karaka for blood. Not many people agree to this, but actually Jupiter is the karaka for blood. It is not Mars. Mars is only the karaka for red in color. Jupiter is the karaka for blood because it is a life-giving karaka. So whenever Jupiter and Mars gets connected, it leads to blood. Okay, so people who have learned under astrology under me would know how do we analyze diabetes and even blood pressure kind of cases. So eighth house connecting with Jupiter, okay, a retrograde Jupiter will have issues in these areas that I spoke about. Okay, there will also be issues with marital relationship. Why? Because eighth house is the house for, it is a house that signifies intercourse, So your sexual intercourse with your partner gets restricted if you have a retrograde planet. More so if it is Jupiter, the male member will always have a problem with the female partner. Even the female partner would not be comfortable with the male partner, largely because of the retrograde Jupiter. Okay, there are also issues for the father. Okay, because Jupiter also in one way signifies a fatherly figure. So ninth house is the father and eighth house negates the ninth house. So from that theory, a retrograde Jupiter in the eighth house can also lead to problem with your father or with your guru in general. Again, if you're married, your wife or your spouse or your husband could also be too spendthrift. So they will not have an accounting discipline to maintain money. So these are some of the common problems that I see when a retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the eighth house. Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the ninth house. As we all know, ninth house is the house for fortune, right? That's one area which is going to get affected. So one day you will be lucky, the other day you will not be lucky. Again, ninth house stands for Dharmastan, house for higher education. These areas will be on and off. One day it will be good, one day it will be bad. It is also the house for guru. So you will have one day good day with your guru. The other day would be pretty dull with your guru. Okay, so it's on and off. Also, ninth house signifies foreign travel. It doesn't signify foreign land, it signifies foreign travel. I have seen in number of cases where people suffer from some issues when it comes to foreign travel. Either their visas get rejected, or it gets postponed, or the last moment they miss their flight. These are very common problems that I've seen when you have the retrograde Jupiter getting connected with your ninth house. Yes, the good thing is you're too much with ideas, too much with bhakti, but again you do not know how to channelize. So these are some of the common issues that you see when retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the ninth house. Now let's see what happens when it gets connected with the 10th house. See, 10th house is the karma sthan. It is also the earth sthan. Earth in Sanskrit means the economic, the house of economics. Okay, so whenever a retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the 10th house, you will have tremendous problems in your career, more so if you're into business. Okay, yes, there are remedial measures. I'm not saying that it will be 100% problem for life, but yes, I have generally seen if you have a retrograde Jupiter getting connected with the 10th house, your karma sthan is totally under trouble. You come across with too many obstacles in your career, and only then you achieve success. So it has got a happy ending, but the journey towards that is always painful. So that is only one problem. Again, you will have issues with your mother-in-law. Okay, be it male member or female member. 10th house signifies your mother-in-law. So you will always have an issue with your mother-in-law. You will also have issues with your in-laws house. So if you're going to your in-laws house, people see only 8th house as in-laws. 8th house alone is not in-laws, because you have a father-in-law, you have a mother-in-law. So you have to divide it accordingly and evaluate. So 10th house signifies mother-in-law, and you will always have a trouble if you're closer to your mother-in-law. Okay, so these are some of the general effect of what you experience with the retrograde Jupiter and the 10th house. Now let's see what happens when it gets connected with the 11th house. See, 11th house is the house for gains, right? It is actually a very good house, except if your ascendant is Aries or Cancer or Libra or Capricorn. What we normally call it as the common sign, or the Chara Rashi is what we say in Hindi. For them, it is the Badak Sthan. But otherwise, in general, the house of gains, the 11th house, is always a good house. It gives you all good things what you can expect from. So, a retrograde Jupiter in the 11th house is actually good. Okay, but yes, the gains that you are expecting will always be delayed. So that's the only problem what you will have when a retrograde Jupiter gets connected with the 11th house. In certain cases, what I've come across off late is that you also have problems with your elder sibling, particularly if you have an elder brother. Okay, because Jupiter is a masculine planet, and getting connected with the 11th house can lead to some kind of a friction with your elder brother. Okay, but it will not lead to a breakup, only a friction. That's it, right? Now let's see what happens when Jupiter gets connected with the 12th house. See, 12th house is the house of loss. It's a house for moksha. It's a house for expenditure, right? So whenever Jupiter gets connected with the 12th house, all these areas will have a trouble. It is also the house for sleep, So normally when you have Jupiter getting connected with the 12th house, you have a good sleep, okay? But if you have a retrograde Jupiter, you will have trouble, okay? You will have a disturbed sleep on and off, okay? Or sometimes you'll be too sleepy, too lethargic kind of a person, okay? You're too spendthrift at the same time. Sometimes, a retrograde Jupiter with the 12th house will make you impulsive to spend, like very similar when you have it in the second house. But 12th house is like, you'll just be too impulsive and say, "Okay, paisa aa gaya, let me spend it out." Maybe in the second house, you may take some time, and then you will research, and then you will fall into the impulsive mode and you will spend. But 12th house is like, jhat aaya, pat gaya. That's it. You just get the money, you just spend it. So that's a common problem that you see when Jupiter gets connected with the 12th house, especially a retrograde Jupiter. So these are the effects of a retrograde Jupiter with the 12 bhavas. I hope this video was informative to you, and of course these are only based on the retrograde position of Jupiter in the natal chart. You have to analyze all other charts. So if you're not able to do it, please take an astro consultation, or if you're a student, consult a good teacher who can teach you about all these planets in depth, and so that your knowledge about astrology can also improve. So I would like to sign off with this, but once again let me request you all to subscribe to my channel, to like this video in case if you like the video, so that it can be encouraging to me. Again, as said in the earlier video, the new batch for learning astrology is going to start very soon. In case if you're interested to learn astrology, you can certainly ping me on the contact details that is provided in the description. The details would be intimated to you as to when the batches would start, and then you can have a journey with me about learning astrology the way I teach normally, right? Also, in case if you want a personal consultation, the details have been given below the description. You can certainly ping me for an appointment. All these video consultations are over phone or video. Okay, so you can have a face-to-face interaction, but only through videos. I don't do a one-on-one physical consultation anywhere. So that's it for the day. I still hope that you like this video, and once again, thank you very much to be tuned with me in this channel. Thank you.